Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of the 6-part interview that Chris Sullivan and I have done to help you know more about our faith-focused short film project, That Which Remains. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Bart Willard and I am writer, director, producer, and lead actor in the film. And for this part, we're going to talk about the steampunk, dieselpunk elements of this film and help you understand a little bit more about that. Chris asked me to speak to the reasons why I wanted to do this film, and we're going to talk about my co-writer and script consultant, Jonathan Willard, and his crucial role in the development of this script. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, hit that button, and stay up to date with more episodes of this interview, as well as updates that will be coming in the near future to just help you know what's going on with the project. But for now, please just sit back, relax, and enjoy.
So, steampunk and dieselpunk, let's talk about that for a minute. Some people probably aren't familiar with what those are, or people have probably heard of steampunk.
Right.
So why don't you explain just briefly, like the era of steampunk, where that came from, and how that was sci-fi and how they looked at sci-fi in the days that that kind of stuff was written,
Sure.
and then from there, where the steampunk world comes in. So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, dieselpunk.
No,
Following steampunk.
yeah, steampunk, dieselpunk. It's kind of funny. Just my son really likes categorizing stuff. My oldest son, Jonathan, and he's like, man, he's like done a taxonomy of all these different punk eras. I'm just sort of staying in this one sort of narrow um, range of history. But I mean, it goes, everything from steampunk through all the way up to like cyberpunk. What we hear, is something called cyberpunk,
One of my favorites.
which is, yeah, I love Blade Runner. Yes, one of my all-time favorite films. But anyway, but yeah, the steampunk look, the steampunk aesthetic, excuse me, that comes from that Victorian age. That comes from the late 19th century. And it was interesting because, that was a time in which there were a lot of new technologies coming out at that time. Um, and a lot of authors were already trying to be very forward looking. It's like, okay, this new technology, this new stuff that's happening. Um, you know, Jules Verne and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which was this turn of the century Victorian kind of setting, and he's already talking about nuclear powered submarines, And then I, think about watching the movie, the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and just the really cool aesthetic because it had all that Victorian ornate and that mix of sort of what I call boilerplate industrial kind of Victorian age mechanics and things like that. So when you think steampunk, kind of think in those directions. Have those sort of things in mind. My actual setting would be best described as, or the aesthetic would be described as sort of between that steampunk, that Victorian era, up through the early 20th century when they were starting to develop gasoline powered technology and
diesel power.
and diesel power and radios and being able to transmit signals through the air without wires and all of that stuff. That was very new technology back then. Now, what steampunk and dieselpunk do is they take new technology and new high technology, things that we normally think of when we see sci-fi movies, um, laser guns and, flying ships and things like that. So they take all that high technology, but they put it into that Victorian, that late 19th, early 20th century aesthetic. So, the whole look of you wind up with these very kind of ornate, uh, or sometimes very industrial boilerplate looking designs that do a lot of like really cool whiz bang technology, uh, yeah, plasma pistols and robots, mechanical, arms and things like that, but that all have that real old world kind of a look. So that's the best way to describe what that aesthetic looks like. Um, so that even if you take some liberties and kind of go a little bit beyond that, the basic palette that you're using, the basic canvas that you're painting on, has always got to use some of those tried and true sort of Victorian and early 20th century elements. Yeah.
Cool, very cool. Um, we'll talk about the concept art in a minute because I
Sure.
know you have concept art, and
Mhm.
we want to show some of that during this interview. But let's go back a little bit more to your original thoughts on doing this film. Why is it that you are, what really motivated you to do that? I mean,
Mhm.
we've talked about the aesthetic side, the
Sure.
geek side of it,
Yeah.
but let's just talk about the life side of it, the Bart Willard.
Yeah.
How are you, and where, what is motivating you? Where do you see? Because quite often authors, filmmakers,
Mhm.
they have ideas of themselves or other people that they sort of interject into the film.
Sure.
Do you see some of that happening, and does that
Yeah.
have anything to do with why you're doing this?
Yeah, most definitely. And artists in general, I mean, we're taught to communicate what we know, what we've experienced. And you never really want to, so you're always drawing from that, from life history and personal experience. For me, this particular film is very personal. It is an expression of thankfulness to my Lord, my God, for the work that He did in a very trying time in my life. A few years ago, I was dealing with a lot of loss. I I come from a very broken childhood. I had a lot of trauma that I had to deal with, and I pretty much just went through my life kind of thinking, "Oh, I dealt with that," and just really kind of ignoring the pain that was still present in my life. And finally, about I would say, 6.5 ish years ago, um, God just put his hands up and said, "No more. You're going to stop." He brought my life to a screeching halt and made me deal with a lot of this stuff. And so I was in grief. I had to dig deep and look back into my past and assess a lot of the things that I was doing in my present life, a lot of the brokenness that I was expressing through my actions. Where was that coming from? What was going on? And I had to deal with that trauma, that brokenness. Um, and at the same time, um, a lot of the things that I was doing uh, uh, out of that brokenness was having a very detrimental effect on my first marriage. And it was during that time, about 6.5 years ago, where I was dealing with that, and I was also seeing the end of my first marriage of 26 years. And I was like, well, what's going on? I'm a Christian. We're not supposed to get divorced. We're not supposed to have those kind of problems and things like that. And facing the reality of all of that, but being allowed to see my God, my Lord, my Heavenly Father through all that sorrow, through all that grief, to be able to see God through my own tears, um, allowed me to see a God of infinite love, infinite compassion, um, who loved me too much to allow me to remain where I was. He wanted to bring restoration to me. He wanted to give me purpose. And that's what he did during that time. And he, I'll be honest, he tore me apart so that he could put me back together, the way that he wanted to do that. And it was that catalyst, um, that caused me to write this story. So in some very deep, significant personal ways, this story is autobiographical. Now, the names and the places have been changed to protect the innocent, all of that kind of stuff. But the emotional state of Andrew, the brokenness and the regret, and those kinds of things that we see him uh, expressing in this story, those are very much me. That's very much where I was, and so that's really why I wanted to tell this story. And so, really, that personal experience of the Lord restoring me, putting me back together, my love for nerdy, geeky, sci-fi, fantasy stuff, also my desire for collaborative work. It's interesting. I am a very introverted person, meaning that it's not that I'm shy. I love talking to people, but I need to recharge by having the solitude and things like that. But I still love bringing people together, a group of people together, collaborative art, uh, and to just see what happens. Uh, Building up, creating something that's bigger than the sum of our parts. Um, and so I think those three aspects, my personal story, the fact that I love uh, this geeky, nerdy stuff, and the fact that I love it when just people come together and just mesh and make things work. That's all come together to inspire me really to want to make a film like this. And I hope that I get to make more films, more stories like this in the future.
That would be cool. And you have a co-writer for the
Mhm.
script, correct?
Yes, I
Can you
do.
tell us who that is?
That is my oldest son, Jonathan. I'm really excited now. The brunt of the writing does fall on me. He's got a full-time job. He's married. He's got a baby on the way. I'm going to be a grandfather. I'm so
Congratulations.
excited. Thank you. Thank you so much. But he's got a lot going on just to build up his family. Um, but he did agree to be my script consultant and my co-writer. He's the one that I go to when I get stuck, when I'm like, I need to solve a problem here within the story, Jonathan. Here's what I want to have happen. Give me your inspiration, give me your ideas, give me your thoughts. And then I take that and run with it. And I must say this, and I don't want to overplay this. I don't like to be hyperbolic, and I don't think I can overstate this enough. How important he was really to the birth of this story, because I knew I wanted to write this story, and I had the just the basic abstractions floating around in my head, but I didn't really have anything concrete yet, especially with the world and the setting for this story. And I just went to him and I said, Jonathan, I need a good start. I need a good beginning. Um, I need your help. And literally within 24 hours, he wrote this this introduction. Okay, this if when you go out and you watch the trailer, and these words are actually going to be in the film. He wrote that opening monologue that we hear as a voiceover in the trailer. And when he gave me that, this world just exploded inside my mind. He gave me the pieces, the parts, the inspiration, and what I needed to just get motivated and start writing this story. And so he's very, very important to this process, and I love having him in this to help me get this thing done.